Hello everybody and welcome to the Crafty Ninja channel. We are going to start by taking our 16-ounce Plump tumbler from the steel Magnolia, and we're going to take some ultralight clay and place it around the top of your cup, and then we are going to smooth it out and give it a kind of roundish shape for the head. Next, I'm going to create a circle for where his eye is going to sit. You want to make it somewhat large because he has very large eyes, and then you'll want to repeat on the other side. Next, we're going to take some more ultralight clay. We're going to place it on the bottom of the cup. We're going to smooth it out and round it out a little bit to give it kind of a body-like shape. Once you're happy with the shape of your cup, then you are going to bake at 275 for probably at least an hour and a half. Now that our clay is baked, we are going to add a layer of polymer clay on top. I use my pasta machine to roll out some Super Sculpey, and then I wrap the entire cup in my Super Sculpey clay. You want to do your best to remove any bubbles that you can find and get it nice and smooth, and also trim off the excess on the top and the bottom. So since his jaw is kind of flat, I'm going to add a rope of clay to add to the bottom of where his jawline would be to give it more of a flat look, to kind of replicate the way his jaw is in the pictures. Then I'll cut off the excess, and then I'll blend it into the top and bottom of his head and his body. Here I'm just using my silicone tip tool to help blend in the areas that my fingers don't really reach well. Next, we're going to create the nose by creating a small ball of clay, and then we're going to place it right at the base of where the eye sockets are, right in the middle. And once we are happy with its shape and its placement, we are going to blend it in. Next we're going to create the nostrils. I used my silicone cone shape tool and I just kind of placed them right there at the bottom of his nose on both sides. Next we are going to create the eyeballs, and they're kind of a teardrop shape, so we're going to take a ball of clay and shape it into the shape of a teardrop. Then we're going to place it on the kind of lower part of his socket, pointing downwards towards his nose. Once you're happy with your placement, you will repeat on the other side and then blend it into your base clay. Now we're going to create the eyebrows, and I just take two very thin ropes of clay and I place it right at the top of the eye socket that we created earlier, and we're just going to place it gently right at the curve, and when we're happy with the length, we're going to blend it in. Next, we're just going to create a line to give him a slight smile with the smile indentations at the ends of both sides of his mouth. Next, we are going to create Scrump, and we're going to give a round ovalish size shape for his head, and we are going to place it just below his jaw. Then we'll take another oval, we're going to place it long ways this time for his body, and place it just below Scrump's head. When I'm happy with its placement, then I blend it in with the rest of the clay. Next, we're going to create the right arm and just place it right below the head and then blend it in with the rest of the body. Next, we're going to do the same thing with the legs by creating two snakes of clay and then placing it on the bottom of the doll's body, and then we'll blend it in. I have my Scrump looking like it's sitting on the table. If you would like, you can make your doll a little bit shorter and make the legs a little bit more droopier if you like. Next, we're going to create the arms, and we're going to place it just over Scrump's body and just kind of right beside below underneath his smile, and we'll blend it into his body. Next, we're going to add Scrump's other arm, and I kind of create like a little bit of a cone at the bottom so it'll stick behind his arm a little bit better, and we're just going to make it look like it's drooping right over Stitch's arm. Now we're going to add his other arm, and we're going to wrap it around the other side of Scrump's body and then place the arm right below his smile on the right side, and then we're going to blend it in. Next we're going to do Scrump's face, and I take my slanted silicone tip tool and I just draw a curvy, kind of wonky line on the bottom of his head to create that mouth. Next I'm going to add the stitches on the bottom of his mouth, and I just take a very thin rope of clay and I cut little pieces off and place them gently in very random shapes to give it that stitched look over its mouth. And then I blend them into the rest of the clay. Next I decided to do his fingers, and this is the thumb for the left hand, and I just took this metal shaped tool and I just created this slight indentation around the tip of the finger to create that nail look. Then I just shape it slightly to give it a little bit more of a fingernail tip. And then I place it on his left hand and blend it in. This is his thumb, so obviously it's going to go right at the top, going over Scrump's mouth a little bit. I will say that it is a lot easier to do the fingers before you put his arms on his body, so I would recommend doing them first. But here I am taking my X-Acto knife and I'm just cutting where I want his fingers to go, and then I shape them to look a little bit more rounder, to look more like fingers. His finger here was a little too short, so I just added a little bit more clay to elongate it a little bit more, and then I shaped the rest of the fingers. Now I'm just adding some more clay to the tip of his fingers to give it the fingernail that he has at the ends of his fingers. So here I am just continuing to add the fingernails to the tips of the fingers. Like I said, this is a whole lot easier to sculpt the hands before you put the arms on the body, so I would recommend sculpting the hands separately and then putting the arms on top. But this was the first one that I had made and I didn't know what I was doing, so I'm just letting you know it's a whole lot easier to sculpt before you put the arms on the body. Now we're going to create the little bow that sits on the top of Scrump's head that's going to go right under Stitch's jaw. So I took two kind of ropes of clay and I made one larger than the other, and I just kind of create this bow-like shape. Then we're going to place it right under Stitch's jaw and right on top of Scrump's head, and we're going to give it like a little squished, droopy look right under the jaw, and then we're going to do another like rope of clay to create the other side of the bow. We're going to blend it in on the other side. Then we'll take a smallish rope of clay and cut 3 strands from it to create the yellow hair-like strands, and we're going to place it right behind the left side of the bow and just blend it into the head. Next we're going to create 2 round circles for the button eyes, and we're going to just place them right at the top of the doll's head. I cut it a little bit because I wanted it to look like it was behind the bow a little bit, so I just shaped it and then added a little bit more clay for the bow to make it look like it was drooping over its eyes. Now we're going to create the stitching for the right button eye, and we're going to take a small rope of clay and just take 2 very thin pieces of clay to create that thread look that buttons have. and we're just going to place it on the button and crisscross it. I created the little holes and where the thread is going to go through, and I put it at the end of each pieces of thread. Then on this button I just created the holes. I'm not entirely sure how that button stays on, but it didn't look like it had thread. Then I created the button that goes on its belly, and I repeat the same process with the thread on this one as I did with the first one. Next we are going to create the legs, very similar to how we made the arms, except at the end instead of hands it's going to be feet. And we're just going to give it a little bit of a stubby like foot and repeat the process on the other side. Once you're happy with the shape of his feet, you're going to place little tiny pieces of clay at the tips of his foot to create the toenails and blend it in. I only placed 3 and then realized a little bit later that he actually has 4 toenails, so you'll want to, if you're wanting to be accurate to his character, you'll want to place 4 toenails on each of his feet. Then you'll want to make sure that the legs are thoroughly blended in to the rest of the clay. Here I'm just placing the toenails on the other foot. Next we are going to do the ears. I just created like this ear-like shape out of foil to give it a armature for it to sit in. I place clay on both sides of it and I give it the roundish kind of shape that his ears have. Then I smooth it out to the best that I can. Here I'm taking 2 snakes of clay to kind of create that lip that his ears have when it kind of droops, or the fold that it has right where the base of his ear is that attaches to his head. On his right ear he has a little notch cut out that's on the side closest to his body, and we'll just want to get that cut out. Then we'll blend in the rest of the clay to itself, and then we will get ready to place it on the right side of his head. So next we're going to place it on the right side of his head, and we're just going to place it right directly against the side of his body. I made my ears probably a little bit longer than his actual ears are, but I just liked how it kind of drooped and curled around the leg a little bit, so that's what I did, and I just place it so it curls a little bit around the side of his leg, and then I blend it into the rest of his body. Here I'm just adding a little bit more clay to give it more of a smooth transition from the ear, the bottom of his ear downward, and smooth it out as best as I possibly can. Now we're going to repeat the same process on the other side. We are going to take some clay, we're going to place it on both sides of the foil and cut it out to the shape that we want his ear to be, and then smooth it out, making sure that we've covered our foil really well and giving him that ear-like shape. Then we add the ropes of clay to create the folds that are in his ear near the base of it, and we blend it in. Here I'm just adding a little bit more clay to build up that fold near the base of his ear and blending it in to the clay. once we've attached the left ear, we're going to create the markings on the back of the head and his back. You could do this in just paint if you want. I just really like the lined look in my clay, and it also made it easier for me to know where I wanted to place those markings later. Next and last thing we are going to do is place the tail. It's just a ball of clay in a kind of a triangular shape, and then we blend it into the base of the cup. I really hope you enjoyed watching me sculpt Stitch. Stay tuned for part 2 on how I paint him if you want to see me paint him. If you liked my videos, please like and subscribe, and remember to stay crafty.